In the spring season of anime 2021, China came out with an anime by the name of Link. It was an incredible mystery time travel anime with some out of this world production values that landed it all the way to the 53rd spot on my anime list, got all the big anitubers making videos on it, with some even going as far as to name it the best anime of that year. Today, it's easy to look back and say that if it wasn't for Link, most of us would still be oblivious to the existence of this animation industry that's doing some incredible things in its own way. And I think the credit for its unparalleled success goes just as much to the audiences who spread the word about the show as it does to the passionate people that worked on it, including a man named Li Haoling, who as the director of Link very well made history for the Chinese animation industry. But the thing about history is that it has a tendency to repeat itself. Fast forward to the spring season of anime 2025, the community once again got filled with murmurs of this hot new anime from China. Once again it became the highest rated show of the season, and once again we saw the name Li Haoling front and center on the director's chair. But unlike what happened previously, there was something different going on this time around with this show, because somehow they had managed to make this new project even more ambitious with its scope. This anime had the mystery of Link, the art style of Spider-Verse, the animation of Arcane, the fights of Solo Leveling, the plot for that certain type of audience, and the plot for that other type of audience. And it had all of this going for it with just the budget of your average anime production. If you don't understand how insane that is, then just take a look at what your average anime in the year 2025 looks like. Okay, I'm obviously taking the piss, but clearly there is something more to this anime that places it leagues above anything that's airing at the moment. And I don't know about you, but if an anime can make me say the words "what the hell just happened" in the first 5 minutes of his first episode, then I'm either watching something along the lines of Inokai-san's Dog, or I'm witnessing peak fiction unfold right in front of my eyes.
What are you doing?
To Be Hero X is that second kind of anime. As the name implies, it's a world full of heroes and people who have their own powers, motivations, and stories to share, with one of them being Lin, who's initially just some random dude that got fired from his job, but after this hero named Nice decided to off himself right in front of him, his life got entangled with some shady business that eventually led to him being forced into playing the role of the hero Nice and take over his persona without being found out, just so he can maintain the trust of the people who look up to him. Except, he isn't even the main character of the story. In fact, none of these people are. There's no protagonist or any real antagonist in the show, since it's told from multiple different perspectives across various timelines. And yet, despite that fact, this anime just seems to work because of how goddamn interesting the rules of this world are. I'm not someone who cares much about power systems in my media because most of them are just basic magic based elemental stuff or tagged on at the last minute, since that's an unspoken requirement of battle shonen series. I mean, Solo Leveling literally has the system in place, which was apparently enough for it to win the goddamn Anime of the Year award. So obviously shows nowadays don't need to have some life altering message or some new and unique plot element in them to grab people's attention. But To Be Hero X isn't like that. The power system in this anime isn't merely a part of the story, but it's the central reason for why stuff happens in the first place. Because the heroes in this anime exist through people's trust in them. It's a system that works on public image, which creates a dynamic where even your average everyday person can be turned into a superhero overnight. But at the same time, they can also just as easily lose all their powers and status if they pull out a ukulele in their apology video. And you can see how this power system affects the people in this world through heroes like Moon, who used to have the power to teleport anywhere in the world, but now she can only ever teleport herself to wherever Nice the hero is because of those toxic shippers that never want them to separate from each other. A guy named Yanchang who went from having no abilities to becoming a well-known hero overnight just because of a viral video. Another hero who's popular enough to have his own KFC franchise. And there's a man who's forced to stay bricked up 24/7 because his fans simply love him that way. I swear it's like 100% lore accurate. A system like this has such interesting implications because you could have streamers trying to take advantage of it by lying through their teeth about being 6 foot tall or something. And if enough people end up believing in them, they might actually grow a few inches to compensate for their sad, miserable existence that relies on external appearances for any value and self-love. I'm getting off topic. The point is, the power system in 2B Hero X makes so much room for tension and bullshit to slowly creep in as the agencies in charge fight tooth and nail to keep up their hero's image, while the villains seize any and all opportunity to degrade their name in the public's eye. In this battle of perception, if you successfully win over people's faith, you can become a symbol, a hero, a literal god of this world. But then again, since you're not the one in control of your own actions and your existence belongs to the command of others, things can easily find a way to go southways real soon. And if somehow that story isn't interesting enough for your taste, then I'm sure you'll still get lost in these gorgeous as fuck scenes whose credit of course goes to the insane animation and production values at display. Most of this anime plays out in that all too familiar but impressive 3D style of animation that we've been seeing a lot more of recently. Everything from the subtle expression changes that relay the thoughts of our characters, to the perspective shots that show you the environment directly from their eyes, to the crazed action fest that blast these energetic battle scenes through your screen, to the highly detailed backgrounds that subconsciously make me believe in this futuristic setting, to even something as small as how each individual strand of any character's hair moves around in the wind plays a part in immersing you into this world. It makes it feel like the characters and the world are actually being affected by each other in meaningful ways, which is a feeling that gets lost when you adapt the scene as a PowerPoint presentation. And it becomes obvious how exactly they managed to pull off this new standard of animation when you learn that they had multiple studios working on different parts of the production cycle, which is part of the reason the art style switches up greatly in its presentation depending on the scene. The anime usually has that painted CGI effect going for it, but then when it's time for some backstory or if shit's about to get real funky, the visuals flip into this completely hand-drawn 2D look with some chunky line art for that additional stylization, which then gets layered on top of that Hiroyuki Sawano soundtrack that just makes me wanna put the show in that high as fuck tier right alongside those experimental works of art like Arcane. But before any of you pointed out to me, yes, 2B Hero X does not have that level of precision, perfection and polish that went behind every second and frame of Arcane. That is a once in a decade kind of unmatched production. We're not just gonna sweep it under the rug like that. But then again, it did cost a total of $250 million for it to come to fruition. Just the fact that we got scenes in 2B Hero X that at their best could very well compete with the likes of Arcane for a fraction of its budget is way more impressive and encouraging to me as a success story than Arcane with its monumental League of Legends money. And I believe this idea of an underdog success story is best represented through this one scene in the episode 4 of 2B Hero X. In the episode, Nice's girlfriend Moon has been kidnapped by a villain who wants to expose his true identity as a total fraud. But as much as Lin Ling tries to take that guy on his challenge and step out in the limelight to save Moon from his clutches, he physically cannot bring himself to defy the words of his believers who don't wish for him to do anything in this situation, even if his inaction results in someone's death. And just like that, in this brief moment, his believers who gave him all the power and fame that he could have ever asked for have suddenly also become his biggest obstacle in life. And even though he could have just sat back and let things play out in this very unfortunate way, Lin Ling goes ahead and abandons everything he's worked so hard to achieve. He runs off to save the only person who's ever showed any real interest in him, not as a dreamy hero, but as the real person he is. Because she was never his weakness, it was instead his believers who held him back more than anyone. And then as you see this normal ass guy try his absolute best to face off against this powerful entity, only to get pushed out the way again and again and again, just puts you in this state of discomfort where you're sitting there waiting for someone to come and save the day, cause after all, that's what heroes do. I mean, it's a society of heroes, so of course someone has to come and rescue this literal citizen of their country. He's already done enough as is by showing up to this spot and art. What more can you even ask from this mere powerless mortal to do in the face of such an awful situation? Oh, you know what? I take that back. I guess I just got so caught up in this whole thing that I overlooked this stupidly obvious thing. Lin Ling in this moment might be powerless, but that's not really any reason for him to just give up, because it's through struggling, agonizing, and trying to do things that even someone as seemingly normal as him can have a breakthrough and achieve something greater in life. To see this man who has no external power or status bring down this evil maniac through only his inner spirit and unwavering resolve just makes me wanna cheer him on from the sidelines with a stupid grin on my face. But the thing that made my small grinning expression turn into a whole ass smile was when I realized that this story of a little guy taking on a big challenge didn't simply belong to Lin Ling, but it also served as a direct reflection of the events that transpired behind the scenes. I might have made it seem like To Be Hero X had an explosive start with that straightforward success story, but really it was more of a slow, steep climb for the anime to reach the heights that it stays at right now. The show didn't have the prestigious budget that it probably should have been given, nor did it have the attention on any of its promotional material despite having been ongoing in production long before Link Click taught your average streetball player how to shoot straight threes. Listen, I've not seen the show, I just know stuff about it from the Scampoli video. Leave me alone. To Be Hero X was a gamble for everyone involved since there was no telling when it would finally be completed and certainly no guarantee that it would even succeed when it did finally come out. And yet, the people working behind the scenes never stopped trying to turn this idea into reality. Because what they might have lacked in funds or popularity, they more than made up for in their time and passion spent on this one project. Over the course of 5 years in different places and across multiple studios, they kept working on this anime even if from an outsider's perspective it made no sense to do so. Tabate on the other hand had it all. A pre-existing manhwa that was highly rated, with a fair bit of fandom surrounding it, and a trailer that gained millions of views across the internet. But now that we're almost done with the spring season of anime, it's obvious which one of these shows ruled over everything while the other turned into a laughingstock for the masses. I genuinely hope no author has to be put in a spot where they have to go on record defending the adaptation of their work that they put so many years of work and love into. But I think it's obvious what separates To Be Hero X from Tabate, where one anime relied on its passion and love to show through the end product and for the audiences to spread the word about it. The other series simply took an already popular title for, well, this reason. And that fight from episode 4 just goes to show that when you see someone try so hard to achieve something, you instinctively want them to succeed, to reach their goals, to come out victorious on the other side. All of that being said, I'm not here to act like the show is a perfect piece of art or anything. There's obvious pacing issues in the first 3 episodes that didn't give me enough time to process most of the events in their full capacity. But in the face of everything this show does so damn well consistently, those complaints are nothing but a footnote. With this level of quality and storytelling, To Be Hero X could very well be someone's gateway into this whole other side of stories taking place hundreds of miles away from Japan, just like Link Click was all those years ago. And it couldn't have done such a thing if the people behind it didn't stand their ground those last 5 years and work on this anime diligently just so they could bring their vision to life. And I think their story perfectly ties back into what To Be Hero X is trying to say in its essence. Stuff like popularity and perceived value is a fluctuating superficial metric that will inevitably die off someday. But the things you do, the actions you take, the people you change with your time here in this place will have a real tangible effect on whoever is involved. So in a world where the former holds all the importance, are you just gonna stand there and endure the will of the people that's forced upon you to live a life of fame and riches? Or will you defy all odds to find your own path in life that leads you to a more hopeful human destination? Thanks for watching.